Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are going to step back in time to a world where the slightest movement of your head, the angle at which you held your gaze, and even the way you stood could determine your place in society. Welcome to Victorian London, a place where politeness was not just an expectation but an intricate dance that defined your very identity. Picture yourself walking along a misty cobblestone street, your boots clicking softly with each step as a chill morning fog lingers in the air. People bustle around you, but they move with purpose, carefully guarding the boundaries of personal space. Here, the most innocuous interaction could spiral into a social disaster if you're not careful. In the Victorian era, greeting a stranger was no simple task. With every bow, nod, or word, you risked offending someone, potentially ruining your reputation forever. If you weren't well versed in the customs of the time, you probably wouldn't survive this social minefield unscathed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Feel free to drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're drifting off to sleep from. Now, turn off the lights, we're hitting the road tonight. This video only shows ads at the end so you can sleep soundly. The world you've just entered is one of strict rules and subtle codes of behavior. In the Victorian era, social expectations were everywhere. Politeness wasn't simply a suggestion, it was a test, a measure of your worth and dignity. It was expected that you would know how to behave in any given situation, from your greetings to the way you interacted with others. One wrong move, one slip-up, and you risked being branded as rude or uncouth, and that could follow you for the rest of your life. You shuffle along the street, not yet aware of how deeply embedded these rules are in the very fabric of society. The first rule is a simple one: don't stand too close to people. Personal space was a luxury, and the boundaries of that space were as sacred as anything else. If you stood too close, you risked making the other person feel uncomfortable, or worse, unworthy of your presence. Historians still debate whether these social expectations came from a desire for order or from a deep-seated fear of appearing too common. What we do know is that Victorian society's obsession with class distinctions created a rigid system of politeness, where every interaction, no matter how trivial, had the potential to expose one's standing in society. You pass a couple of well-dressed ladies on the street, their posture perfect, their steps deliberate. They greet each other with a slight nod of the head, a practiced motion, nothing too overt. A glance could be seen as an invasion of privacy, so they look past each other, pretending as though the other's existence is inconsequential. It's a small, quiet interaction, but one that speaks volumes in a world that values the control of emotion above all else. Now you feel a tap on your shoulder. Someone has approached from behind. Do you turn and smile, or do you do what's expected? You instinctively stiffen up, recalling the first of many rules: always acknowledge the person with a nod. A smile could be seen as too forward, too familiar. You bow your head slightly, and the person, seeming to understand that you've followed the rules, does the same. This silent ritual is repeated 1,000 times a day, and it's second nature to those who live in this world. You walk a little further down the street, the rhythm of your steps aligning with the distant chatter of nearby pedestrians. The noise seems to fade as you focus on the delicate balance of every greeting. Every face that passes you might be another opportunity to misstep. This is a world where even silence speaks volumes. The Victorians knew this all too well. You were always being watched, and your every gesture could either elevate you or bring you crashing down the social ladder. You notice an older man in a bowler hat approaching. As he draws closer, he gives you a slight nod. It's a small, simple gesture, but one laden with meaning. A nod like that signals respect. It's polite, formal, and just enough to acknowledge your existence without overstepping boundaries. A bowler hat, by the way, isn't just a fashion statement. It's an identifier of class and rank. A simple nod to a man in a bowler hat might tell you he's of a certain social standing, perhaps a professional, someone of considerable importance. You learn quickly that the shape of a man's hat, his suit, even the way he walks, can reveal everything you need to know about his place in society. As you return the nod, you feel the weight of this unspoken language. There's no need for words. No need for a handshake which, believe it or not, was not a common greeting in this era. It was a gesture of familiarity that might seem too intimate for the formality of Victorian London. Instead, the tilt of the head, the motion of the hat, the posture of the body. These were the ways in which you communicated your social grace and status. Historians still debate whether Victorians were truly obsessed with hierarchy, or if these rituals were simply a way to maintain order in a rapidly changing society. The Industrial Revolution was shaping the world around them, and people were beginning to move from rural villages to the hustle and bustle of London, where class divisions were much more rigid and visible. You continue your walk reflecting on the fact that you haven't yet exchanged a single word. In the Victorian era, words were often seen as less important than the actions that accompanied them. How you looked when you greeted someone, how you stood, how you bowed your head was what mattered most. A poorly executed greeting could be more offensive than anything you could say. You smiled to yourself at the thought of how strange this might seem today. In a world where we greet strangers with casual waves or handshakes, the Victorians were playing a game of social chess, always mindful of the right moves. As you approach a small group of well-to-do ladies, you pause and take a deep breath. This will be your first real test. These women, dressed in the finest silks, are likely to judge you for every detail of your approach. They're talking softly amongst themselves, and their eyes briefly flick to you as you stop in front of them. You have mere moments to decide how to greet them. Do you make eye contact, or is that a step too far? Do you bow, or is a nod more appropriate? The pressure is real, and you feel it. In Victorian society, women were to be greeted with a level of deference. A slight bow of the head, perhaps a tip of the hat, and a respectful silence were all that was needed to show your respect. It's a moment that feels strangely intimate, and yet there's no room for warmth. They say it's the Victorian way, keep your emotions in check even when greeting strangers. You're about to move forward, when one of the ladies gives you a slight smile, a rare occurrence in this strict society. You can't help but feel a sense of pride, knowing that your own careful performance has passed their silent test. But even as you walk away, you wonder, was it the right greeting? What more could you have done? You will never truly know, for in Victorian society perfection was always just out of reach. The streets of London seem to blur around you as you continue walking. The etiquette of Victorian society is like a second skin, one that you're slowly learning to wear, but never quite with comfort. Every step, every interaction feels like an intricate dance you are trying to learn on the fly. You pass another group of pedestrians, and once again you find yourself at a crossroads. Do you greet them or not? The decision isn't always simple. In some situations, it's better to remain invisible. Imagine this: you find yourself in a situation where the person approaching is of a much higher social standing than you. A quick glance at their finely tailored coat, their elegant gait, and the delicate flick of their walking stick tells you everything you need to know. In this world, your rank, how you were dressed, where you lived, even who your parents were. These things determined your value, and your greeting would reflect that. The world you now find yourself navigating is one where etiquette is a social currency, and you must spend it wisely. You notice a well-dressed man coming your way. His posture is perfect, his step assured. As you get closer, you can't help but wonder what would happen if you greeted him too enthusiastically. Would it be seen as too familiar? Would you offend him? Victorians were extremely careful about their displays of emotion, and in public you had to tread lightly. Enthusiasm, especially in greetings, was generally frowned upon. Too much excitement in a greeting could suggest that you were trying to draw attention to yourself, a trait seen as low class. Instead, your greeting should be composed and respectful, but never effusive. As you meet the man's gaze, you remember one crucial piece of advice: keep your composure. You give a small nod, a slight tilt of the head, and immediately avert your gaze. The interaction is over as quickly as it began. No words were exchanged, but the transaction was complete. In this moment, you understand that the value of a greeting isn't just about saying the right thing. It's about saying the right thing in the right way. Historians still debate whether the Victorian obsession with social distancing and emotional restraint was born from a fear of overstepping or a need to preserve civility in an increasingly crowded world. Was this intricate system of greetings simply an extension of class-based division? Or was it a more universal desire to avoid the chaos of unregulated social interaction? Your thoughts are interrupted by a woman's voice. You turn to see her standing on the corner, clearly waiting for something or someone. She's wearing a delicate lace bonnet, her posture as poised as any royal, and she watches you for a moment before offering a quick nod. You instinctively mimic her gesture, but there's something about the way she does it so sharp, so controlled, that it seems almost intimidating. Every move she makes is deliberate, every glance perfectly timed. You can't help but wonder if this constant control is exhausting. What must it be like to live in a world where everything you do is judged by others, where every greeting, every moment of eye contact could shift your social standing? And yet there's comfort in it too. This dance of politeness keeps things ordered, doesn't it? There's no ambiguity, no confusion, just clear prescribed roles. As you continue walking, you think back to what you've learned so far. The nod of the head, the slight tip of the hat, the careful positioning of your body. Each of these things serves to protect you from the judgment of the masses. But what happens when you get it wrong? What happens when you fail to live up to these rigid expectations? You've heard the stories, whispers in the streets about individuals who became social outcasts because they made a mistake in the fine art of greeting. A misjudged bow, an overtly friendly handshake, a glance that lingered just a moment too long, these things could ruin lives. In a society so obsessed with appearances where every action was scrutinized, a single misstep could mark you forever. And yet there was a part of you deep down that began to question this obsession with perfection. Could a world that demanded such precision really be the best one to live in? Was it worth all the effort to maintain such a facade? As the day continues, you find yourself wandering deeper into the heart of London. The streets are packed with a blend of the working class rushing about their business, and the upper class strolling with deliberate grace, each group oblivious to the other's existence. You, somewhere in between, are trying your best to blend in, to navigate this labyrinth of social rules. Every step you take feels like a calculated move, as though every decision you make, every greeting, every glance could tip the scale in your favor or ruin you forever. You pass another gentleman, his demeanor even more austere than the last. This time, You instinctively adjust your posture, making sure your back is straight and your head is slightly bowed, as if the slightest misalignment could give you away. He acknowledges you with a small nod, the briefest of gestures, but it's enough to confirm something important. He has judged you, and you've passed. It's strange, isn't it? How this world operates on such an elaborate set of unspoken rules, where you're constantly being evaluated by your manners, your movements, your very presence. One wrong greeting, one misstep, and you're forever marked as inferior. The pressure to get it right is suffocating, yet you can't help but feel a sense of accomplishment every time you manage to meet the standards. But there's something else gnawing at you now. What if you're wrong? What if this constant effort to fit in to please others is just a futile exercise? After all, even with all these rules, people were still judged, still discriminated against based on their birth, their wealth, their appearance. Etiquette couldn't change that. Could it? As you walk past another row of shops, your thoughts wander to the concept of identity. Who were you really in this world of facades? How much of your true self could survive beneath the weight of all these expectations? Every greeting, every bow, every word that passed your lips seemed like a performance, a mask that you wore to fit in. In Victorian society, who you were in private mattered little. What mattered was who you appeared to be in public. Your outward actions, your interactions with others told your story far more than your inner thoughts ever could. You think back to the men and women you've encountered today, all of them perfectly composed, each one locked in their own little dance of societal norms. It's almost like watching a play unfold. Everyone plays a role carefully rehearsed, and failure to adhere to the script leads to disaster. It's a world built on appearances where status is earned through gestures, where one's position is made known through subtle signals. The peculiar thing about Victorian greetings is that they were never about what you said. Words, after all, were far too open to interpretation. A simple hello could carry 1,000 meanings depending on the context. But a bow, a nod, the careful tilt of your hat, these things were fixed, codified. Everyone understood their meaning, and if you performed them correctly, you were granted access to a certain level of respect, however fleeting it might be. As you turn a corner, you encounter another group of women. This time, they're dressed in extravagant, colorful gowns, the fabric shimmering in the daylight. They seem to float above the ground, so delicately poised, and you instinctively pause to watch. As one of them meets your gaze, she gives you a small, practiced smile, so controlled, so perfect. It's a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, a smile that's more a signal of recognition than anything else. It's a smile that says, "I see you, but I am not really seeing you." You wonder for just a moment whether they even know what it's like to truly connect with someone, to truly meet another person's gaze without the weight of societal expectation hanging over it. You shake off the thought, such feelings have no place in this world and certainly not in the streets of London. And yet the more you encounter these carefully constructed moments, the more you feel a sense of alienation growing within you. It's almost as if these greetings, these exchanges are designed not to bring people together, but to keep them apart. People in this world are constantly performing, constantly maintaining distance from one another, and the boundaries of personal space are more than just physical. They're emotional, psychological. You begin to realize that the very idea of a genuine interaction, one that's free of expectation or performance, might be a luxury this world simply doesn't afford. As you continue walking, you try to remind yourself there's beauty in these rituals. There's comfort in knowing the rules, in feeling the weight of tradition that holds society together. But deep down, there's also something unsettling about it all. How much of your life should really be spent adhering to these rigid norms? And at what cost? As you walk deeper into the heart of London, the streets grow busier. The fog lifts just slightly, revealing the grand architecture that lines the avenues. It's a world of contrasts, opulence and poverty, tradition and change, all coexisting within a few blocks of each other. You pass by towering buildings that have stood for centuries, yet you know the winds of change are coming. The world is evolving, but Victorian etiquette clings to life like an iron grip. The weight of tradition is heavy on your shoulders as you make your way through the crowd, your mind whirring with the endless rules and customs you're learning. You find yourself standing outside a grand theater where a group of well-dressed people are gathered in front. A gentleman in a crisp suit nods at you as he passes, and without thinking, you return the gesture. It's automatic now, this bowing of the head, this careful acknowledgement of others. You're no longer consciously thinking about each gesture, and yet you're always aware of the scrutiny around you. It's as if your every action is being measured, weighed, and found wanting if you slip up. The world around you is so carefully ordered. You can almost hear the gears of Victorian society turning the delicate mechanisms of politeness at work. A slight misstep, and those gears could grind to a halt, causing an uproar. You imagine that it must be exhausting, this constant performance. But at the same time, there's a strange comfort in the predictability of it all. If you just follow the rules, you know exactly what's expected of you. No surprises, no uncomfortable moments of awkwardness. Yet, even as you find yourself becoming more adept at these rituals, a small voice inside you wonders, is this really how you want to live? The Victorian world is one where your every move is governed by unspoken rules. What happens when you long for something more genuine? You can't help but feel the stirrings of rebellion within you. But then the reality hits. If you were to break away from these customs, you would be ostracized. To challenge the system is to risk everything, your reputation, your place in society. And so you swallow that urge to break free, and you continue to play your part in the grand, quiet performance that is Victorian life. You continue walking through the city, absorbing the ebb and flow of life around you. Here, there's a sense of rhythm to everything, an underlying pulse that governs the way people move and interact. The greetings are no longer an afterthought, they're second nature now. You nod to a well-dressed couple passing by, their faces stern and composed. They nod back, acknowledging your presence without ever truly connecting. It's all about appearances, you realize. The world you're in is a carefully constructed facade, one where people are expected to play their roles without deviation. At the same time, there's something oddly comforting about the ritualistic nature of it all. The rules are clear. The expectations are known. There's no need to guess or improvise. The rigid structure of Victorian life provides a sense of stability in an otherwise chaotic world. But as you pass yet another group of people, their stiff postures and controlled expressions, you wonder if there's more to life than this. Could there be more to a greeting than just a nod or a bow? Could you connect with someone on a deeper level beyond the constraints of these rules? You come to a small cafe, its windows fogged from the heat inside. You pause for a moment, taking in the scene. A man sits at a table, his back straight, his eyes scanning a newspaper. A woman in a delicate dress sits across from him, her hands folded neatly in her lap. There's a subtle exchange between them, a brief glance, a slight tilt of the head, but it's also restrained. There's no real warmth in their interaction, just the expected exchange of pleasantries. You can't help but wonder, is this the pinnacle of social interaction in this world? A life lived in constant performance where nothing is ever truly real. As you walk away from the cafe, you try to shake off the feeling of disconnection that lingers. You've learned to navigate the intricacies of Victorian greetings, and in many ways you've mastered the art of politeness. But at what cost? What have you lost in this pursuit of perfection? The answer, of course, is something you'll never truly know. All you can do is continue walking your next interaction just around the corner. Historians still debate whether Victorian society's obsession with decorum and politeness was a reflection of a deeply repressive culture, or simply a reaction to the rapid changes of the era. In a world teetering on the brink of industrialization, the need for structure and predictability might have felt like a safety net. But in the end, you begin to question whether such rigid rules only serve to keep people from truly connecting with one another. You pause once more as you notice a familiar face in the crowd, a man you've seen before, perhaps at the theater, or walking the streets. He meets your gaze, and for the briefest of moments you sense something different in his eyes. It's as if, for just a moment, the rules are forgotten. You wonder if beneath all the formalities there's the possibility of something real, something genuine. But before you can react, the moment passes, and he looks away, returning to his carefully constructed role in this vast social performance. As the afternoon begins to turn to evening, the air grows cooler, and the bustle of the city starts to slow down. The streets, once crowded with the hurried pace of the day, are now dotted with people making their way home, their movements as measured and deliberate as ever. You can almost feel the collective sigh of relief an entire day of maintaining appearances is coming to an end. And yet the evening has its own set of rules, its own expectations for how one should behave. Social interaction doesn't stop when the sun goes down. It simply takes on a different form. You pass by a small gathering outside a theater, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. Some of the faces are familiar from earlier, and you notice that the greetings here are just as stiff and controlled as the ones you've encountered all day. It's as if the entire city is in the midst of an endless social dance, and everyone knows the steps no one can afford to slip up. You think back to the earlier interactions you've had. Every bow, every nod, every glance, it all seems so carefully choreographed, so deliberate. And yet, despite all this structure, you can't shake the feeling that something is missing. You've mastered the art of the greeting, but it feels more like a performance than a connection. And you begin to wonder if these rules, these rituals are meant to create distance between people rather than bring them together. As you walk past the theater, a familiar face catches your eye. It's the same gentleman you saw earlier, the one with the bowler hat and the perfectly tailored coat. He's standing on the steps of the theater, speaking with a group of men, his posture as perfect as ever. As you approach, he glances up and gives you a quick nod, barely perceptible but enough to acknowledge your presence. It's funny how much you've come to rely on these silent exchanges, these subtle gestures that mean so much in this world. The nods, the boos, the quick glances, they've become second nature, almost like a language of their own. And yet, in a world so obsessed with appearances, you wonder if anyone ever truly feels seen. You've spent the day learning how to navigate these social rituals. But what about genuine human connection? Can it exist in a world so obsessed with politeness, with formality? You find yourself wondering if it's possible to break free from these constraints. What would it be like to greet someone without thinking about the rules, to simply smile to say a word, without wondering if it will be deemed too casual or too familiar? Could you ever truly connect with someone in this society, or would it always be a performance? A dance that never allows for real emotion. As you continue on your walk, you encounter a young woman standing on the corner. She's alone, her face half hidden by the veil of her bonnet, and she watches you with an intensity that feels different from the usual distant gaze of strangers. There's something in her eyes, a curiosity perhaps, and for a moment you consider approaching her. But then the rules flood your mind once more. What should you say? How should you approach her? You wonder if there's a proper way to greet a woman in such a situation, if there's a way to make this interaction feel genuine, or if it too will be reduced to a performance. Historians still debate whether Victorian society's obsession with social rituals and formality was a response to the rapid social changes of the time, or whether it was a way to maintain control over a society that was increasingly difficult to manage. The rapid rise of the middle class, the new industrial economy, and the rapid urbanization of cities like London made the old ways of life feel increasingly threatened. Was the rigid etiquette just a way of preserving order in an uncertain world? As you walk past the young woman, you can't help but feel the weight of these rules bearing down on you. You nod at her briefly, a polite acknowledgement, but it's a gesture that feels hollow in comparison to the look in her eyes. You wonder what it would be like to let go of all these expectations to interact with people without worrying about the proper etiquette. But then you remember in this world, such freedom is a luxury. The rules are the foundation of society, and without them there would be chaos. You continue your walk, the weight of these thoughts settling in your chest. The evening air feels colder now, and the once bustling streets seem eerily quiet. You wonder how many more days you'll spend walking this same path, following the same rituals, greeting the same strangers, all while wondering if there's more to life than this constant performance. As you walk home, you realize that the world you've entered is one of endless contradictions. On the one hand, there's a sense of order and stability in the rituals that govern every interaction. But on the other, there's a deep sense of isolation, a feeling that despite all the gestures, all the bows and nods, no one is truly connecting. The polite nods, the careful glances, they keep people at a distance, and you can't help but wonder if that distance is necessary for society to function, or if it's just a way of keeping people from truly seeing one another. As the evening stretches on, the city begins to take on a more subdued, almost melancholic tone. The lively hum of the daytime crowd is replaced by the soft murmur of hushed conversations, the clinking of dinnerware, and the occasional rattle of a passing carriage. The streets, now dimly lit by gas lamps, cast long shadows over the cobblestones, adding to the sense of quiet anticipation in the air. London, it seems, has entered a new phase for the night, a time when the rules of social etiquette are still at play, but the stakes are different. You find yourself approaching a cafe tucked into a narrow street, the faint glow from inside beckoning you to enter. The air is cooler now, and the rhythm of your footsteps seems to echo in the emptiness. You hesitate for a moment, considering whether or not to go inside. At this hour, the cafe is likely filled with people of a certain status, and you wonder whether your entry would be noticed. Would the others pay attention to your greeting, to the way you held yourself? You know that the unspoken rules extend even into these private spaces, where a misstep could be just as glaring as it would be on the crowded streets. The door opens with a soft creak, and you step inside. The warm light and the smell of fresh coffee fill the air. Immediately, you notice the stiffness of the room, the way people sit just a bit too straight in their chairs, as though the expectation of propriety never lets up, not even here. A group of men in fine suits converse at a corner table, their voices low but measured. At a nearby table, a woman sips tea delicately, her movements graceful but contained. You can't help but feel that the entire place is operating under an invisible but inescapable code, a code of quiet restraint. You take a seat at a table by the window, careful to choose one that isn't too close to any of the others. The space between you and the nearest person is deliberate, and you immediately begin to feel the weight of it. You wonder how long it will take before someone approaches you. Perhaps a greeting, a nod, a brief exchange. You wonder whether you will be able to meet their expectations, whether you'll perform this role just as flawlessly as you've done all day. As you settle in, you observe the small interactions around you, each one as delicate and choreographed as a dance. A gentleman catches the eye of a woman across the room and offers her a brief nod, just enough to acknowledge her without being overly familiar. She responds with a slight inclination of her head, a soft acknowledgement that is neither too distant nor too warm. Their exchange is as brief as it is perfect. It's a performance, and they both know their lines. You can't help but wonder, why does it have to be like this? Why does every greeting, every moment of connection need to be so carefully constructed? The more you watch, the more you realize how exhausting this social game must be. Every movement, every word, every glance, everything must be calculated, measured, precise. What happens when someone forgets the rules? What happens when someone steps outside the rigid boundaries of this delicate dance? Historians still debate whether Victorian society's obsession with formality was a reaction to the instability of the time, or if it was simply a product of the social hierarchy. With the rapid changes brought on by industrialization, the rise of the middle class, and the growth of cities like London, the need for stability and predictability was undeniable. But at what cost? What had been sacrificed in the pursuit of order? The cafe begins to empty as the night wears on, and you notice a few more familiar faces. A nod here, a smile there. No one speaks much, but the atmosphere is still thick with the tension of unspoken expectations. You begin to wonder if this is all there is, if these gestures of formality and restraint are all that people in this world really have. As you finish your drink, you can't help but think about the world outside, a world that feels increasingly distant. What would it be like to live in a place where greetings weren't so heavily scrutinized? Where you could simply walk up to someone and say hello without worrying about whether it would be too familiar, too casual, too forward. You think about the people you've met today, the men with their bows, the women with their careful smiles, and you wonder if they too long for a more genuine connection. But before you can dwell on it further, the waiter arrives to clear your table, and the moment passes. You slip back into the rhythm of the evening, your exit as controlled and deliberate as your entrance. You give the waiter a quick nod of thanks, and he acknowledges you with the same brief formality that defines every interaction in this world. As you step back into the cool night air, you're struck by the realization that you're no longer questioning the rules, you're beginning to internalize them. The quiet dance of Victorian etiquette has become second nature. The bow, the nod, the careful glance, they've all become part of you now. And yet, as much as you've learned to navigate this world, you can't shake the feeling that something is missing. You've become a master of greeting, but you've never truly connected with anyone. You start walking again, the city stretching out before you, the endless rows of buildings and gas lamps flickering in the distance. You realize that you've learned all the rules, but you've never quite learned how to be free of them. And, as you wander through the quiet streets, You can't help but wonder, in a world so obsessed with appearances, can anyone ever really be themselves? The night air feels colder now, and as you continue your walk, you realize how much time has passed. The world around you seems both familiar and distant, as if you're walking in someone else's shoes, playing a role in a society you're still trying to understand. The more you learn about the intricate web of Victorian etiquette, the more you find yourself wondering if it's all worth it. Can a life of rigid formality, of carefully measured gestures, truly bring happiness? Or does it simply serve to perpetuate a system that keeps people at arm's length from one another? You pass a street lamp, the gaslight flickering slightly in the breeze. Its faint glow casts a shadow on the cobblestones, and for a brief moment you imagine what it might be like to live in a world without these constant rules. No bows, no carefully timed nods, no performing for the sake of appearances. It's an enticing thought, but one that seems impossible to reach. Victorian society, you realize, is built on these unspoken codes. It's a world where your actions, your very presence, are constantly being scrutinized, and your place in that world is determined by how well you conform to its expectations. As you round a corner, you encounter a group of well-dressed women, their laughter soft but precise. They seem at ease, their posture impeccable, and you can't help but feel a pang of envy. They glide through the streets with an effortless grace, their interactions smooth and flawless, as though they've mastered the delicate art of Victorian politeness without ever having to think about it. You can't help but wonder, do they feel free in this world, or are they simply as trapped by the rules as you are? Historians still debate whether the strict social etiquette of the Victorian era was a form of control or a means of self-preservation. On one hand, it kept people in their designated roles, preventing chaos from overtaking society. On the other, it created a system that perpetuated the idea that one's worth was determined by their outward behavior, their ability to perform these rituals without fault. Was it really about preserving order, or was it about maintaining power? You approach the group of women unsure of what to do. Do you greet them with the same formal nod you've been using all day, or do you risk something more? Something that might feel more genuine. The weight of this decision is heavier than it should be, and as you hesitate, one of the women catches your eye. She smiles. Not the stiff, controlled smile you've seen all day, but a small, genuine curve of the lips. It's almost as though she sees something in you that no one else has. The moment lingers for a split second before she turns her attention back to her companions, and you feel a strange sense of longing. You can't help but think, what if this is what it all comes down to? Not the perfect bow, not the flawless nod, but the simple acknowledgement of another person, a shared moment of connection, however brief. Could it be that, despite all the rules and rituals, the true value of a greeting lies in the intention behind it? You walk away from the group, still lost in thought, wondering if there's a way to navigate this world without completely abandoning the rules, but without losing yourself in the process. The night grows darker, and the streets seem emptier, now the crowd having thinned as the hours pass. You're left with the quiet hum of the city, the sound of your own footsteps, and the weight of the etiquette that has been with you all day. You've learned to navigate these social customs with ease, but you can't shake the feeling that you're missing something important. It's as though you've perfected the exterior, but haven't yet figured out how to reach the heart of things. As you reach your destination, a small townhouse tucked in a quiet corner of the city, you pause at the door, considering what the day has taught you. You've learned the rules, the subtle art of greeting, of maintaining your distance, of performing for the world. But you also realize that the rules, no matter how perfectly you follow them, can only get you so far. They can help you blend in, but they can never make you feel truly seen. You open the door and step inside, the warmth of the house greeting you like an old friend. You're alone now, the quiet of the evening settling around you. You remove your coat slowly and deliberately, still thinking about the events of the day. The nods, the bows, the smiles, all the rituals that kept you at arm's length from everyone you encountered. You wonder if you'll ever find a way to break free from this constant performance. Or perhaps you think it's not about breaking free at all. It's about finding a balance, a way to live in a world of rules without losing yourself entirely. Historians still debate whether the Victorians were truly happy with the elaborate rules of their society, or whether they felt trapped by them. Was there room for genuine connection in such a world, or was it always going to be about maintaining appearances? You don't know the answer, but one thing is certain. The world you've entered is not one where you can afford to stop performing. Not unless you want to risk being forgotten, overlooked, or worse, disrespected. You close your eyes, letting the quiet of the house settle over you. For tonight you'll rest, but tomorrow you'll put the rules back on. Because in Victorian London, that's how things are done. The morning light creeps in through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. You awaken, feeling the weight of the day ahead pressing down on you. It's another day in Victorian London where every interaction, every movement is governed by the same unspoken rules. You stretch your mind, still swirling with thoughts of the rituals, the customs, and the endless etiquette that define this world. Yesterday, you navigated the streets with a practiced grace, but today feels different. You can't quite place it, but something inside you feels restless. You get dressed carefully, choosing your attire with the same deliberation you've grown accustomed to. Each button, each cuff is adjusted with precision. Your appearance must be flawless, for in this world, how you present yourself is everything. You glance in the mirror, inspecting your reflection, and for the first time you wonder, who are you beneath all this? The clothes, the posture, the gestures, they're all part of a performance, a carefully crafted image that you present to the world. But what lies underneath? What part of you remains untouched by the rules that govern this society as you step out into the street? The hustle and bustle of London greets you once again. The sound of footsteps, the clattering of carriages, the soft murmur of conversation. It's all part of the city's rhythm. But now you notice something new. The faces you pass are more than just strangers. They're actors in a play, each one performing their role according to the script they've been given. And you too are part of this grand performance. You can't escape it. You make your way to the cafe, where you know you'll encounter the same familiar faces. The man in the bowler hat, the group of women with their stiff smiles. They're all here, each one following the same rituals, each one trying to maintain their place in this world. You're no different. You know the rules now, and you play your part without hesitation. The nods, the bows, the careful exchange of pleasantries. It's all so automatic now, as if you've become a machine performing each action without thought. But there's a strange disconnect inside you. You've mastered the etiquette, you've perfected the art of greeting, and yet you still feel like an outsider in this world. You wonder if anyone else feels this way, if anyone else is yearning for something more. The thought lingers in your mind, but you quickly push it aside. You can't afford to dwell on such things. In Victorian society, there is no room for weakness, no room for doubt. You must perform. and you must perform flawlessly. As you sit at the cafe, you observe the interactions around you. A gentleman offers a tip of his hat to a lady, and she responds with a small smile, nothing too wide or too warm. It's all so precise, so controlled. There's no room for spontaneity here. The rules dictate every action, every word. Even the way people hold their cups of tea is deliberate measured. There's no room for error. Historians still debate whether Victorian society was truly content with its rigid social structure, or if it was simply a way to maintain control in a rapidly changing world. The rise of industrialization, the expansion of the empire, the shift in social classes, all of these things created a sense of uncertainty. In such a world, perhaps the rules of etiquette provided a sense of stability, a way to keep chaos at bay. But at what cost? Was it worth sacrificing individuality for the sake of order? As you watch the people around you, you can't help but wonder, is this all there is? A life spent performing, maintaining appearances, never straying too far from the script. The thought nags at you, but you push it aside once again. You've come too far to question the rules now. They are the foundation of society, and without them there would be nothing but confusion and disorder. But as you leave the cafe and step back into the streets, you feel a strange sense of freedom. You've mastered the art of greeting the rules of Victorian etiquette, and yet for the first time you feel like you're no longer completely bound by them. Maybe there's room for something more, something beyond the performance, beyond the rituals. But that, is a luxury few can afford. You continue walking, the weight of the rules still heavy on your shoulders, but a small glimmer of something else is beginning to take root within you. Could it be that there's more to life than perfecting the art of greeting? Could there be room for something genuine, something real in this world of rigid formality? For now, you can only wonder. But the thought lingers as you make your way through the streets, feeling the weight of Victorian society pressing down on you, even as you begin to question whether it's all worth it. As the days pass, you begin to notice something subtle yet undeniable, a shift in the way you view the world around you. The rituals of Victorian etiquette, once a distant and baffling performance, have become something you now navigate with ease. You've learned when to bow, when to tip your hat, when to make eye contact, and when to look away. You've perfected the dance. And yet despite all this mastery, there's still a lingering sense of disconnection. The gestures, the formalities, they've become second nature, but what have they really given you? You wonder if you've learned how to greet people but not how to truly connect with them. As you walk through the streets of London once more, the weight of your interactions feels lighter. The unspoken rules no longer hold the same power over you. You've come to realize that perhaps the true purpose of Victorian etiquette isn't just about making a good impression or keeping the peace. It's about maintaining control over the chaos of life. In a city as vast and bustling as London, where new ideas and social structures are constantly emerging, these rules provide a way to keep order. They provide a framework, a sense of predictability in a world that is anything but predictable. But as you pass by the familiar faces of the people you've seen on your walks, the men in bowler hats, the women with their carefully controlled smiles, a thought begins to gnaw at you. Despite all the order, despite all the predictability, there is still a deep undercurrent of loneliness. The etiquette may have kept the peace, but has it kept people from truly connecting? Has it built a wall between individuals, keeping them at a distance even as they move in close proximity to one another? You stop at a street corner, watching a young woman greet an older man with a brief nod. Their interaction is almost mechanical, brief, polite, without a hint of emotion or familiarity. There's a formality to their exchange that feels empty, like a ritual performed out of obligation rather than genuine connection. You wonder if that's all there is to life in this world, a series of polite performances, each one designed to maintain the social order without ever allowing people to truly see one another. You've spent so much time learning the rules, so much time perfecting the art of greeting, that you realize you've never really asked yourself, what is the purpose of all of this? What's the ultimate goal of a society that is so consumed with appearances, with maintaining the facade of politeness at all costs? Is it truly about respect, or is it just about keeping people in their place, preventing the chaos that could arise if people were allowed to act freely without restraint? Historians still debate whether Victorian etiquette was a way to preserve civility in a rapidly changing world, or a mechanism of control that kept the lower classes in check. Was it a necessary evil in a society where social mobility was limited, where class distinctions were rigid? Or was it simply a way for those in power to reinforce their authority, ensuring that everyone knew their place and stuck to it? As you continue your walk, you find yourself pondering these questions more and more. The streets of London are still filled with people all following the same rules, all performing the same rituals. But now, when you pass them, you can't help but feel a sense of separation. You've learned how to greet people, how to navigate the labyrinth of Victorian etiquette, but you haven't learned how to truly connect with them. The gestures, the smiles, the bows, they all feel like barriers keeping you from truly seeing the people around you. You stop outside a grand building, looking up at the intricate stonework and the towering columns. It's beautiful, yes, but it also feels cold, distant. The same could be said for the society you've entered. On the surface, everything appears perfect, polite, controlled, orderly. But beneath the surface, there's a deeper sense of isolation. People may exchange pleasantries, they may perform their roles perfectly, but are they truly connecting with one another? You begin to realize that the Victorian world, for all its elegance and order, is built on a foundation of distance. The rules of etiquette keep people separated, preventing them from reaching out to one another, from bridging the gap between social classes, between strangers. And while you've learned to navigate this world with grace, you can't help but wonder, is this really the way things are meant to be? You glance around, observing the people in the streets, the men tipping their hats, the women nodding politely. They're all part of the same performance, moving in sync with the rules that govern their every interaction. You've learned to perform just like them. But now, more than ever, you feel like an outsider. The art of greeting may have become second nature to you, but you've also come to understand that the true cost of these rituals is the distance they create. As the evening falls and the city begins to quiet down, you return to your home, the weight of these thoughts following you. You've mastered the rules, but you've also begun to question them. And though you know that you will continue to play your part in this grand performance, you can't shake the feeling that there must be more to life than simply following the script. The next morning arrives, its cold light filtering through the windows, but you feel no different than you did yesterday. The weight of the rules, the heavy cloak of Victorian etiquette still hangs around your shoulders. You've learned them all, every nod, every bow, every carefully measured glance. But now you begin to wonder if this is enough. The more you move through the city, the more you start to see the same faces, the same rituals repeated endlessly. It's as if time itself has become trapped in a cycle of politeness, each day blending into the next, with little more than the performance of good manners to distinguish one from the other. As you make your way out into the street, the day unfolds just as it always does. Men in their bowler hats, women with their delicate bonnets, the hum of carriages in the distance. The rules are the same. The nods, the polite smiles, the slight tilt of the head, all of it has become second nature. You've played the part so well that you're no longer questioning the motions you go through each day. But something has changed inside you. The city, once full of opportunity and excitement, now feels like a stage, and you are merely an actor following a script written long before you arrived. The question nags at you again. What is the purpose of all this? Is it enough to simply perform, to keep the peace, to follow the rules, to keep everyone at a distance, even as you're surrounded by people all day long? Your encounters, your greetings, are they real? Or are they just gestures in an elaborate game? How long can you live like this, knowing that everything you do is preordained? Every glance calculated, every interaction, a performance for an audience that may never truly see you. You stop outside a bustling shop and watch a young man approach a woman. He tips his hat and she acknowledges him with a quick, practiced smile. It's a perfect greeting executed flawlessly, yet it feels empty. The interaction is as brief as it is meaningless, as if their entire exchange exists only to fulfill a requirement, not to forge a connection. The woman moves on her mind already elsewhere, the moment forgotten before it even began. You can't help but wonder, why do they do it? Why do they all perform these rituals day after day without ever questioning them? And for what? To avoid the shame of misstepping, to avoid the chaos of social disorder. Is that what this world has come to? You continue your walk, your steps slowing, as you reflect on the answers to these questions. As you pass more people, you notice how they seem to move through the city, in a trance, each one lost in their own world, separated from the others by an invisible barrier of etiquette. No one looks anyone else in the eye for too long. No one ventures too close. The space between them is more than physical. It's emotional, psychological, and it's maintained by the constant need for control, for composure. Even the warmest of smiles is held in check, never allowing too much emotion to surface. Historians still debate whether this detachment, this need for control, was truly an essential part of Victorian society, or whether it was a reaction to the rapid pace of industrialization and the resulting social upheaval. The world was changing fast, and the old social structures were being tested. Etiquette, perhaps, was a way to keep that change at bay, to maintain some sense of order in a world that was becoming increasingly unpredictable. But you can't help but feel that in trying to preserve order, they've created a world that's colder, more distant one, where the possibility of genuine connection has been sacrificed in favor of performance. You stop at a small square, the sound of birds overhead, and the rustle of leaves in the trees breaking the otherwise silent scene. A couple sits nearby on a bench, speaking softly to one another. You can't hear their words, but their posture tells you everything you need to know. They're in the midst of a conversation, but it's one conducted under the watchful eyes of those around them. Their words may be intimate, but their bodies remain rigid, their movements restrained. Even in private moments, they follow the rules, keeping themselves guarded from the world and from each other. This, you think, is the heart of Victorian life, a constant tension between what's felt and what's shown. The rules of greeting and politeness dictate everything from the most public interactions to the most private moments. It's a society built on appearances, on the need to look composed, to keep emotions under control, to maintain a perfect facade. And though you've learned the rules, you can't help but feel that they've robbed you of something essential: the ability to be yourself, to express your feelings without fear of judgment. As you walk away from the square, you can't shake the feeling of isolation that clings to you. You've mastered the art of greeting, but the art of connecting, of truly seeing others and being seen in return, feels beyond your reach. You realize that in a society so obsessed with maintaining appearances, with following the rules and keeping up the performance, it's easy to lose sight of the things that really matter: genuine connection, mutual understanding, and the freedom to be vulnerable. And so you continue on performing your part in the grand play of Victorian life, but with a new understanding of its limitations. The rules, you know, will always be there, binding you, shaping your interactions, keeping you at a distance from others. But now you wonder if there might be another way, another path, one that allows for both politeness and true connection. Perhaps in time you'll find it. But for now, you continue to play the role you've been given, ever aware of the thin veil that separates you from the people around you. The days pass with a slow, predictable rhythm each morning, following the last in a haze of routine. The weight of etiquette still lingers, but it feels lighter now, like a mantle you've become accustomed to wearing. You go through the motions, nods, bows, quick glances, and yet something inside you has begun to change. The rigidness of the rituals, the constant performance of politeness is starting to feel like a hollow shell, one that you can inhabit but never truly make your own. As you walk through the streets of London once more, you notice how familiar everything has become. The patterns of behavior, the slight shifts in posture, the quick exchanges of pleasantries, they're all predictable. People are so locked in their roles that it feels like they are no longer living in the world, they're merely performing in it. You can almost see the invisible lines drawn between each person, lines that define their place, their position, their value. And everyone stays within their designated space, never daring to cross the boundary. It's easy to see why people stay within the lines. The consequences of missteps are severe. To break the unwritten rules, to overstep your boundaries, is to risk everything: your reputation, your status, your very place in society. And yet, as you walk through the crowd, you begin to wonder if it's all worth it. What's the point of following these rules, of playing this part, if they only serve to keep you distant from the others? You've learned to play the game, but now you're starting to question whether the game itself is worth playing. You stop for a moment to observe a pair of gentlemen in the distance. They are standing together, speaking in low tones, their gestures minimal but controlled. One of them tips his hat in acknowledgement as another passes a brief, polite gesture that's almost too perfect in its execution. You feel a pang of recognition. This is the world you've entered, a world where every interaction is measured, every word calculated. It's a world built on appearances, on politeness, on keeping the distance just right. And though you've mastered it, you still can't help but feel that something's missing. You cross the street and continue your walk, reflecting on the social codes that bind you. You've learned that a simple nod or a slight bow can communicate a wealth of information. Respect, familiarity, acknowledgement, even disdain. But none of it feels real. Not the bows, not the glances, not even the words exchanged. It's all part of a performance, one that everyone plays their part in, but one that leaves little room for authenticity. You've followed the rules, you've perfected the gestures, but you're beginning to wonder if in the process you've lost something important. Historians still debate whether the Victorians were truly content in their world of formality, or if they were simply afraid of what might happen if they let go of their carefully constructed roles. Could they ever be free from the invisible chains of etiquette, or were they doomed to play their parts forever? The more you think about it, the more you start to see how deeply these rules permeate every facet of life. How they shape not just your actions, but your very identity. The performance is so ingrained in the fabric of Victorian society that it feels impossible to separate the self from the role. But now you're starting to wonder, is that the goal? Is it enough to simply perform to fit neatly into the box society has built for you? Or is there something more to life than just going through the motions? You continue on, lost in thought, until you encounter another group of people standing at the entrance of a fine establishment. They greet each other with the same restrained gestures you've come to know so well. A slight bow, a tip of the hat, a glance that says just enough to maintain the illusion of familiarity, without ever crossing the line into something deeper. You stand there for a moment, watching them interact, and for the first time you realize just how much distance these rituals create. They may be polite, they may be graceful, but they also keep people apart. The rules of etiquette are designed to maintain order to preserve the social structure, but they also serve to keep people from truly seeing one another, from truly connecting. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all. The rules, the gestures, the distance. It's all starting to feel suffocating. You've spent so much time learning how to navigate this world, how to follow the rules, how to perform the perfect greeting. But now you can't help but wonder, what's the point? What's the point of a life lived in a series of well-rehearsed rituals where no one is truly seen and no one is truly known? The thought lingers as you walk on. You've learned to play your part to navigate the intricate web of Victorian etiquette. But the question remains, is this all there is? Is this endless performance all there is to life in this world? And if it is it enough? The quiet of the evening has settled in, and the city's usual hum has softened. You stand at the edge of a park, looking out over the lush greenery, the trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. The streets ahead are still save for a few lingering figures in the distance, their movements purposeful but restrained. The weight of etiquette hangs over you just as it always has, but tonight it feels different. You've been questioning the rituals, the performances, and now for the first time you wonder if there's more to life than simply playing the part. You take a slow, measured step forward, your mind still swirling with thoughts of the social rules that define Victorian society. The constant dance of greetings, the delicate bows, the smiles that never quite reach the eyes. It all feels so empty, so controlled. The perfection of the gestures is flawless, but the sincerity behind them is elusive. The people around you are playing roles just as you are. And you begin to wonder what would happen if someone were to break the rules. What if instead of performing the expected ritual, you simply acted as you felt? Would it be as disastrous as you fear, or would it create a moment of real connection? You stop by a bench and sit down, taking a moment to breathe in the cool air. The city is beautiful, no doubt, but there's a hollowness to it. Everywhere you look, there are reminders of the distance that etiquette creates. People walking by, nodding politely, exchanging pleasantries that feel more like formalities than real interactions. The boundaries between them are invisible, but deeply felt. And you too are part of that world. You've learned the rules, you've perfected the gestures, but you can't help but feel that in doing so, you've built a wall between yourself and others. As you sit there, the thought crosses your mind. Could you break free from this performance? Could you greet someone without the filter of politeness, without the careful bow or measured smile? Would that be seen as an invitation to chaos, Or would it be something more authentic, more human? The question lingers, but before you can answer it, you're distracted by a figure approaching. A woman, her steps slow and graceful, her gaze focused on the path ahead. She's dressed in the customary fine attire, her bonnet perched, just so her posture impeccable. As she gets closer, you notice that she's walking alone, her movements unhurried but purposeful. She's not part of the hurried crowd. She moves at her own pace, unaware of the rules that govern everyone else. Her presence stands out in a sea of structured formality, and for a moment you feel a flicker of something unfamiliar curiosity. She passes by you without a glance, as is customary in this world. You're not close enough to exchange words, not close enough to even acknowledge one another. But something about her presence makes you pause. There's a sense of freedom in the way she walks, as though she isn't bound by the rules of greeting that everyone else follows. She doesn't have to perform, doesn't have to keep up the facade. And for a moment you wonder if it's possible to be like her, to live in this world of formality and control, but still retain a sense of individuality, a sense of true self. You rise from the bench and continue walking, the question still buzzing in your mind. Can you break free from the rules without breaking the world around you? Can you live authentically in a place where the expectation is always to perform? The thought feels both exhilarating and terrifying. You've spent so much time perfecting the art of politeness, so much time learning how to fit in, that you're not sure what would happen if you let go of all of that. Would the world still accept you? Or would you be cast out, marked as someone who doesn't belong? You reach a busy street corner where carriages rush by and people bustle about, their movements predictable, their faces distant. As you watch the familiar scene unfold, you feel the tension between the two realities. One where you follow the rules, where you perform, and one where you break free, where you embrace vulnerability and authenticity. The choice seems impossible, the risk too great. Yet you can't deny that something in you longs to be more than just a performer in a world of rigid expectations. The streets are growing quieter as the night deepens, and the sound of footsteps echoes in the distance. You think back to the woman you saw earlier, the one who moved so freely, so unconcerned with the rules. Was she truly free? Or was she simply another performer in a different kind of game? You can't answer that question, not yet, but it stays with you as you walk through the empty streets. You've learned the rules, you've played the part, but now you realize you're searching for something more. Historians still debate whether the Victorian system of etiquette was a necessary response to the chaos of the time, or whether it was a tool used to keep the lower classes in check. Was it a means of survival in a rapidly changing world, or was it simply a way for the elite to maintain power? You can't help but wonder if the system itself is flawed, if it's been designed to keep people from truly seeing each other, from forming real connections. You stop at a familiar intersection, watching the last few carriages disappear into the night. The city is quiet now, the streets emptying as people retire for the evening. You realize that the performance, the rules, they're all still there, still a part of you, still shaping your every interaction. But now you wonder if there's room for something more in this world of politeness and formality. Perhaps in time you'll find the answer. For now, you'll continue to play the part, but you'll carry the question with you, hoping that someday you'll find the courage to break free from the script. The days continue to stretch out before you, and each one feels like a subtle shift. The city around you remains the same, moving in predictable patterns, its people playing their roles with the same meticulous precision you've come to expect. Yet now you find yourself drifting through the streets, slightly detached, as if you're watching the performance from the outside rather than playing your part in it. The ritual of greeting, the gestures of politeness, they've all become so ingrained in your muscle memory that you no longer have to think about them. You've become adept at navigating this world, but the question still lingers. What's the point? You pass by the same people, the same rituals repeated day after day. The bowing, the tip of the hat, the careful smile, all these performances play out in front of you. And though you understand them, you can't help but feel a sense of emptiness. The perfection of the ritual is impressive, but there's something hollow about it. You've learned the rules, but you're no longer sure that following them is enough. The world you live in, the one governed by these unwritten codes of conduct, feels small, confined. There's a world beyond it, you know, but it seems so far out of reach. As you walk down another familiar street, you find yourself stopping at the same cafe, where you've spent countless hours. The door creaks as you push it open, and the warmth of the space envelops you. It's a small comfort, this cafe, the place where you've come to understand the rules of interaction, where the greetings, the nods, the polite exchanges have become almost second nature. But today it feels different. The comfort you once found in this familiar setting now seems a bit too stifling, a bit too controlled. You take your seat at a corner table, looking around at the patrons, each one following the same script. The polite gestures, the quiet murmurs, the careful exchanges of pleasantries. Everything is so predictable, so restrained. It's as if everyone here is caught in a web of politeness, unable or unwilling to break free. You wonder if they too feel the same way. Do they ever question the rules? Do they ever long for something more real, more spontaneous? You glance over at a couple seated near the window, their conversation soft and measured. There's an air of familiarity between them, but even their interaction feels controlled, as if they're playing a part in some grand performance. They exchange polite words. The gestures are subtle but deliberate, and you wonder, do they even truly see each other? Or is this just another exchange of pleasantries? Another moment where they follow the script to keep the peace, to maintain the distance. It's in this moment of quiet observation that you realize something. For all the rules and rituals you've learned, for all the gestures you've perfected, there's still a deep yearning inside you, a yearning for something more, a desire for authenticity, for a moment where you don't have to follow the script, where you can simply be yourself without the constraints of social expectation. Historians still debate whether the strict social structure of Victorian society was a necessary evil or simply an oppressive system designed to maintain order. Some argue that the rules of etiquette were a way to preserve civility, to avoid the chaos that could arise in a society where social mobility was ever increasing and the class system was being tested. But as you sit in this cafe, watching people perform the same gestures over and over, you begin to question whether that sense of order is worth the cost. You think back to the woman you saw a few days ago, the one whose movements seemed so free, so unconcerned with the rules. She walked through the city with a quiet confidence, as though she didn't need to follow the performance to be seen or acknowledged. You wonder where she is now, if she's still out there moving through the world without the weight of etiquette bearing down on her. You long to be like her, to live without the constant need to measure every action, to keep everything in check. But the reality of your situation hits you again. You are bound by the rules just as everyone else is. In Victorian society, to step outside the bounds of politeness is to risk everything to lose your place, your respect, your status. The social structure is rigid, unyielding, and it can feel impossible to break free. You sigh and push the thought aside, returning to the present moment. You take a sip of your tea, the warmth of it a small comfort in the midst of your thoughts. But the question still lingers. Can you ever truly break free from the performance? Can you live authentically in a world where every move you make, every word you say is scrutinized? And if you do what happens, does the world accept you, or does it cast you aside? For now, you can only continue to follow the rules to play your part in the grand performance. You're good at it now, better than you ever thought possible. But as you sit in the cafe watching the world go by, you know that, deep down, you're still searching for something more. Something real. Something beyond the rules. The sun has set, and the city seems to take on a quieter, more introspective air as you walk home through the dimming streets. You've begun to notice the delicate beauty in the small moments, the way the gas lamps flicker in the darkness, the soft whisper of the wind through the trees, the muted sounds of footsteps from other pedestrians moving along the cobbled streets. It's as if the city itself is whispering, urging you to slow down and notice the subtler things that get lost in the noise of daily life. But even in these quiet moments, the weight of the rules follows you. You glance up and see a man walking towards you, a gentleman judging by the precision of his gait, the polished shoes, the sharpness of his coat. His eyes meet yours, and he offers the briefest nod. Instinctively, you nod back, mirroring the gesture just as you've done 1,000 times before. The exchange is quick, polite, effortless, but as you walk past him, you wonder what would happen if you didn't perform that gesture. If you simply kept walking without returning the nod, would the world crumble? Would the illusion of politeness be shattered? You continue on your steps measured, but now your mind is filled with a swirl of questions that you've never fully entertained before. What would it be like to walk through the world without these invisible strings pulling you in every direction? What would it be like to meet someone and not have to worry about whether your greeting was too casual or too formal? Would the connection feel more genuine if it didn't have to be defined by rules, by gestures that have been passed down for centuries? Historians still argue whether the system of Victorian politeness was truly a means of preserving order, or if it was at its core a tool for controlling behavior, maintaining a clear social hierarchy. The more you reflect on it, the more you feel as though the system is something that keeps everyone locked in place, preventing the raw, messy emotions of life from spilling out. It's a world where spontaneity is kept at arm's length, and authenticity is reserved for private moments if it exists at all. You pause at a street corner, watching a group of women standing in front of a shop, talking in hushed voices. They are dressed immaculately, their postures perfect, their movements as choreographed as any ballet. There's a strange tension in the air, as though they are holding back something, perhaps their true selves, or the desire to break free from the constraints of their roles. You wonder if they too feel the strain of it all. Do they ever question the performance they've been asked to play? Or is it so ingrained in them that it feels like second nature? You can't tell from here, but the thought sticks with you. What would happen if someone were to approach them without the formalities, without the need to keep their distance, without the performance of politeness? Could there be something genuine, something real beneath the surface? You realize that you have begun to crave that connection, the kind that doesn't come with a script, the kind that doesn't require perfection. But how can you find it in a world that seems so carefully designed to keep everyone apart? You continue walking lost in these thoughts, when you're jolted from your reverie by a familiar face, someone you've seen before, a man with sharp features and a gaze that seems to pierce through the politeness of everyday exchanges. He's standing at the entrance of a pub, watching the people as they pass by. You've seen him several times over the past few days, always in the same spot. Always observing. Always silent. For some reason you find yourself drawn to him, a quiet curiosity stirring within you. You approach him slowly, your mind racing with the usual considerations. What to say, how to say it, what's appropriate, what's not. But as you draw near, he looks up and meets your gaze with a steady, almost unflinching stare. For a moment, the usual ritual of greeting seems to fall away. The nod, the bow, the tip of the hat, none of it feels necessary in this moment. You're simply two people in the same space acknowledging each other without the need for the usual performances. It's a brief exchange, nothing more than a fleeting moment of eye contact, but something about it feels different. There's no politeness, no formality, no rules. Just a connection raw and unfiltered in the silence between you. And as you walk past him, you can't help but wonder if that's what you've been searching for all along. The chance to simply be yourself without the need to conform, without the weight of expectation. You continue your walk home, your mind still reeling from the encounter. The question still lingers. What if the rules, the gestures, the performances aren't necessary after all? What if the simplest thing, just acknowledging someone, just being present, is enough? You don't know the answer, but the thought offers a strange sense of peace. As you reach your doorstep and step inside your home, you let out a slow breath. You've spent so much time trying to master the rules, trying to fit in, to conform to a world built on politeness and distance. But now, as you close the door behind you, you realize that maybe, just maybe, there's another way. A way where connection doesn't require performance, where authenticity is more important than the perfect bow. For now, you can only hope to find it. But as you drift off to sleep that night, a quiet sense of possibility lingers, and the thought that there may be more to life than polite gestures is enough to carry you through another day. The days unfold like a gentle rhythm, each one a continuation of the last, but a quiet change has begun to settle in your mind. You walk the streets of London once more, and though the people around you are still lost in their rituals, nods, bows, polite murmurs, you are beginning to see them in a different light. The rules of etiquette, once so imposing, now feel less like a heavy burden, and more like an obstacle between you and the connection you've been longing for. You start to realize that these rules, this performance of politeness, serve not only to preserve order, but to prevent real, vulnerable interactions. They create a barrier that keeps people at arm's length even as they move in close proximity to one another. You pause at a street corner and watch a group of people conversing in the distance. Their conversation is soft, but their gestures are restrained, as if they're all performing their roles in a script no one dares to deviate from. The bows, the nods, the polite inquiries, they're all familiar, comforting in their predictability, but also hollow. You wonder if these people even realize that they're trapped in this performance, that their interactions are dictated by the invisible rules of society. Or is it just the way things are? Is there no other way to live? No other way to greet one another? The thought hangs in your mind as you continue walking. The world around you feels both beautiful and suffocating. Beautiful in its order, its grace, its elegance, but suffocating in its lack of true connection. You've learned how to play your part, how to follow the script, but you've also begun to see the price that's paid for that perfection, the loss of authenticity. The world you inhabit is one of careful control, of maintaining appearances at all costs. But what does it mean to maintain appearances if no one ever truly connects? You reach a quiet park, a place where the noise of the city seems to fade, and you take a seat on a bench looking out over the small pond. the scene is peaceful, but in the stillness you feel that familiar tug, the feeling that something is missing. There's no one here to greet you, no one here to judge your actions, but the silence feels different now. It feels like an opportunity, an invitation to connect with the world in a way you haven't before. As you sit there, you notice a man walking towards you, a figure you've seen around the park before. He's familiar, but you've never exchanged more than a passing nod. Today, however, something about his presence feels different. His movements are relaxed, unhurried, as if he's not concerned with the performance of politeness that governs so many of your interactions. He stops when he reaches the bench, offering a small, casual smile, one that's not rigid or forced, but genuine, unguarded. Lovely day, isn't it? He says, his voice low but warm. It's not a question, just a simple observation, but it feels different. There's no formality, no structure to the interaction. It's just a person acknowledging another person without the weight of the rules hanging over them. For a moment, you're taken aback. It's such a simple greeting, but it feels like a breath of fresh air in a world that's been suffocating under the weight of politeness. You return the smile, not out of obligation, but because it feels right, because you can feel the sincerity behind it. Yes, it is. You reply, your voice unguarded, just like his. And for a few moments, you both sit in silence, looking out at the pond. There's no need for further words, no need to perform. You don't need to bow, you don't need to tip your hat. You don't need to make sure your distance is just right. You're simply two people sharing a quiet moment in the park. The silence doesn't feel uncomfortable or strained. It feels peaceful, like a rare gift. You realize that this is what you've been searching for, a genuine moment of connection, free from the rules and expectations of the world around you. And though it's fleeting, it's enough. Enough to remind you that the world you've been living in, the world of etiquette and performance, isn't the only world. There are moments like this, moments where connection happens without the need for politeness, where people are free to simply be. You continue your walk, the memory of that brief encounter lingering with you. You've come to understand the rules of Victorian society, how to play the part, how to greet others without stepping outside the bounds of what's acceptable. But now you know that there's more to life than simply following the script. You've tasted a moment of authenticity, and though it was small, it's enough to carry you forward. You realize that the rules, the rituals, they don't have to define you. You can navigate this world, learn its gestures, perform its rituals, but you don't have to lose yourself in the process. There's room for spontaneity, for real connection, even in a world so bound by structure. And perhaps, just perhaps, there's a way to exist in this world without becoming a prisoner to its rules. As you continue your walk, you can't help but feel a sense of hope, a quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, the world is bigger than the performance you've been playing. There's more to life than following the script. There's space for something real. As you move through the city once again, you notice a subtle shift in the way you approach the day. The rules, the rituals, they're still there, but they no longer feel quite as suffocating. They've become something you can navigate, a set of guidelines you understand, but you no longer feel bound to them as you once did. The distance they create between people, the distance that you've followed so meticulously, is still present, but now you see it for what it is, a choice. It doesn't have to be permanent, you realize. You can choose to acknowledge it, and in the same breath you can choose to break free from it when the moment calls for it. As you pass through the busy streets, you watch the faces around you. The same patterns are in play, polite nods, careful glances, the soft murmurs of greetings. But now you begin to see them differently. The ritual has become a reflection of the world's desire to maintain order, to preserve a sense of hierarchy of distance. But at what cost? How many people, you wonder, are longing to break free from this invisible chain, to let go of the performance for just a moment and make a genuine connection? You cross paths with an elderly man who gives you a sharp, deliberate nod. You respond with the same gesture out of habit, out of instinct. But as you walk away, the encounter feels strangely empty. Another gesture performed, another role played. The man doesn't seem to have noticed anything beyond the formality of the exchange, and you begin to wonder how many interactions like this occur every day, where the form outweighs the substance, where people are simply going through the motions. Your thoughts are interrupted by the sound of laughter ahead. You glance up and see a small group of people gathered near a street corner speaking in low tones. The sound of their laughter is unrestrained, genuine. It's a rare sound, something you haven't heard much in the careful, controlled world of Victorian London. You find yourself drawn to them, your steps slowing as you watch them interact. Their conversation flows freely without the rigid structure you've come to expect. There are no bows, no tips of the hat, no carefully measured distances. Just people sharing a moment of connection. You find yourself smiling without thinking, feeling the warmth of the moment. It's the kind of exchange that feels effortless, like something natural, unforced. It's the kind of connection you've been searching for, the kind that doesn't require performance, that doesn't require you to hide behind the facade of politeness. You wonder how often these moments happen in a world so obsessed with maintaining order, with following the rules. And you realize that perhaps this is the key, the ability to break free from the performance when it's right to do so. To allow yourself to be vulnerable, to truly connect with someone else without the constraints of social expectations. For the first time, you feel the urge to do just that. To break free from the script, to step outside the boundaries of the role you've been playing. The thought of stepping away from the polite rituals, of abandoning the formalities, feels strange but liberating. What if you could greet someone without the weight of expectation, without the need to measure your actions? What if, instead of a bow, you simply smiled? Not because it was expected, but because you genuinely felt it. What if, instead of a nod, you spoke without the calculated precision of etiquette, but with the spontaneity of true connection? You don't know the answers, but the idea is powerful, and it stirs something deep within you. You pass by the group of people again, watching them interact with ease. You wish for a moment that you could be part of that exchange, part of a world where connection comes without the need for rules, where people can simply be. But then you realize with a quiet sense of understanding that you can be part of it. It's within your power to choose a different way to engage with the world around you, not through the lens of performance, but through the lens of authenticity. You smile to yourself, a real smile, one that comes without thinking. It feels different, freer somehow. For the first time in a long while, you feel like you're not just going through the motions. You're living, truly living in the present moment with the world around you. And that you realize is the key. You don't have to reject the rules entirely, but you can choose to step outside them when it feels right. You can choose to be real, to connect with others without worrying about the performance. The streets seem quieter now, the evening settling in as you make your way home. The weight of the world around you is still there, still pressing on you, but for the first time you feel like you've found a way to move through it without being crushed by it. You've learned the rules, the rituals, the dance of Victorian etiquette, but you've also learned that there's more to life than just performing. There's room for spontaneity, for authenticity, and for genuine connection. As you reach your doorstep, you stop for a moment and take a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill your lungs. You've come a long way since the first time you walked these streets, since the first time you encountered the complex world of Victorian politeness. And now you realize that you don't have to live in the shadows of the rules anymore. You can choose to break free to embrace something real, something that doesn't require perfection. And with that thought, you open the door, stepping into the warmth of your home, knowing that the journey you've been on is far from over, but that perhaps you've found a new way forward. The days grow shorter, and with them a subtle shift in the atmosphere around you. The once rigid and predictable rhythms of Victorian life, those carefully calculated steps you've been walking, seem to have softened ever so slightly. The streets you once observed with a keen eye for politeness and decorum now seem quieter, more welcoming, even in the midst of all the unspoken rules that still govern them. As you move through the city, you feel as though you're slowly shedding the layers of formality that once bound you, leaving room for something more, something real. You don't know exactly what that is yet, but it's there, just beneath the surface, waiting for you to find it. Today, you walk down a different path, one you haven't traveled often. It's a quieter street, lined with smaller houses and gardens, the homes tucked away from the noise of the city center. The air here feels fresher, and the silence feels like an invitation. For the first time in a while, you find yourself looking around, taking in the beauty of the surroundings, without the burden of expectation or social obligation. The people you pass are just that, people. No bowing, no formal nods. There's something more natural in the way they move, a relaxed ease that seems at odds with the stiff performance of the broader world. You come to a small garden at the end of the street, its gate open, inviting you in. The sight of the flowers, the neatly trimmed hedges, and the trees swaying gently in the breeze catches your eye. Without thinking, you step through the gate and wander into the garden. It's quiet here, away from the chaos of the city. You feel for the first time in a long while that sense of freedom, the freedom to simply exist, to take in the moment without concern for the expectations that have long governed your life. You find a bench in the far corner of the garden and sit down, letting the peace of the place wash over you. The sounds of the city are distant now, muted by the natural surroundings. For a few moments, you close your eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the tension in your shoulders release. You think back on everything you've learned, the rules of Victorian etiquette, the bows, the nods, the smiles that never quite reach the eyes. And you realize that for the first time, you have found a space where none of that matters. Here, there's no need to perform. You're not expected to be anything other than yourself. As you sit there, a small bird flutters down to a nearby branch. You watch it for a moment, its movements quick and purposeful, but graceful. You think about how simple it is for the bird to exist in the world, how it doesn't need to follow any rules to be who it is. It's just living in the moment as it is. A thought rises in your mind. Why can't you do the same? Why can't you live in the moment, free from the expectations, the politeness, the performance? The question hangs in the air, but there's no answer. Maybe there isn't one yet. But for the first time you realize that it's a question worth asking. Perhaps the answer lies not in abandoning the rules completely, but in finding a balance, learning to move through the world, acknowledging the rules, but not allowing them to dictate every action, every word. There's room, you now understand, for something beyond the performance. There's room for you to simply exist. You spend the rest of the afternoon in the garden, reflecting, breathing in the fresh air, allowing yourself to be present in a way you never have before. The city seems far away now, its noise and chaos momentarily forgotten. When you finally rise from the bench, you do so slowly with a new sense of purpose. You don't know what lies ahead, but you understand that the journey you've been on is far from over. You've learned to navigate the intricate rules of Victorian society, to master the gestures and the distance, but you've also come to realize that the true challenge lies not in performing the part, but in finding a way to live outside the performance, to live authentically, to make connections that don't require the mask of politeness. You walk back toward the bustling streets, the rhythm of the city gradually returning as you move closer to the heart of it. You've been here before so many times, but now it feels different. The distance between you and the people around you feels smaller, somehow less significant. You've learned to acknowledge the rules, but you also know now that you don't have to be bound by them. There's a freedom in that realization, one that you can't yet fully grasp, but it's there lingering just beneath the surface. As you approach the crowded street corner, a familiar face catches your eye. It's the same man you saw days ago in the cafe, the one whose genuine smile had left an impression on you. He's standing near the curb, waiting for a carriage, his eyes scanning the crowd. You hesitate for a moment, unsure of what to do. Do you approach him? Do you engage in the same polite exchange you've always known? For a split second, the world seems to pause. Then, without thinking, you step forward. The moment feels different, not as rehearsed or formal. There's no bow, no distance. You simply smile, not because it's expected, but because it feels right. He sees you, and for a moment there's no need for words. The smile you share is real, not constrained by the rules of politeness, but freely given. It's a simple gesture, but it feels significant. For the first time, you realize that the world doesn't have to be defined by rules or expectations. There's space for authenticity, for connection, for moments that go beyond the performance. The rules are still there, but they don't have to control you. You can choose to follow them, to step outside of them, or to find your own way somewhere in between. As you watch the man walk away, you feel a small sense of peace. The world is still full of rules, of gestures and performances, but now you know that there's more to it than that. There's room for something real. And in that realization, you take another step forward, knowing that your journey is far from over. The days continue to pass, each one more fluid than the last. The city around you remains the same, its streets bustling with people, all moving in accordance with the quiet performance of politeness that has become second nature to everyone here. The rules of greeting, the subtle gestures, the distance between people, they are still present, always just beneath the surface of every interaction. But now, something inside you has shifted. You no longer feel trapped by these rules. They still guide your actions, but they no longer define you. You've learned to navigate them, but you've also begun to step outside them when the moment calls for it. There's a quiet freedom in this realization. As you walk through the familiar streets, your steps feel lighter, more confident. The weight of the performance, the pressure to conform, has lessened. You've come to understand that the world around you doesn't have to be a stage where everyone is playing their part. There are moments, small, fleeting moments where you can simply be. And in those moments you feel more connected to the world than you ever have before. Today, as you make your way through the bustling streets, you find yourself pausing at a street corner. The scene before you is typical, a group of well-dressed gentlemen engaged in polite conversation. A woman gliding past with a slight nod to those she passes. The familiar gestures, the ritualistic greetings are all there just as they've always been. But now you notice something else. Beneath the layers of formality, beneath the polite bows and measured smiles, there is a quiet tension, a hesitation, a longing for something more than the performance. You see it in their eyes, in the small gestures that betray a desire for real connection, even if they don't acknowledge it openly. It's a fleeting moment, one that could easily be missed, but you catch it. And for the first time you understand the performance may be the norm, but it's not the only way. As you continue on your walk, you realize that the rules of Victorian society are not inherently bad. They serve a purpose, after all, providing order in a world that could easily slip into chaos. But now you see them for what they truly are, a framework, a set of guidelines that help people navigate the complexities of social interaction. And you've learned that it's okay to follow them when necessary, but it's also okay to step outside of them when the moment calls for it. There's a balance to be found, a middle ground between politeness and authenticity. You think back to the moments you've shared with others recently. Those small exchanges, those genuine smiles, those quiet connections where the rules didn't matter. They've become more frequent, more meaningful, and you begin to understand that these are the moments that truly matter. They're the moments where you're no longer playing a part, no longer performing for the world. You're simply present, engaged, connected. And in those moments you feel more alive than you ever have before. As you turn a corner, you spot a familiar face in the crowd. A man you've seen a few times, a figure who stands out not because of his attire, but because of the quiet confidence he exudes. His posture is relaxed, his movements unhurried, as though he's not concerned with the expectations of the world around him. As he catches your eye, he offers a small smile, one that feels warm, genuine, without any trace of the rigid formality that governs so many other interactions. It's a smile that acknowledges your presence but doesn't demand anything in return. It's simple, unforced, and for the first time you realize this is what connection feels like. You smile back not because it's expected, but because it feels right. For a moment, there's no need for words. No need for the usual gestures or formalities. You're simply two people acknowledging each other, sharing a moment of connection without the weight of social expectations. It's a quiet exchange, but it's enough. More than enough. It's a reminder that connection, real connection, doesn't need to be complicated. It can be as simple as a smile, a nod, a shared moment of recognition. As you continue on your way, you feel a sense of peace settle over you. The rules are still there, of course. They always will be a part of the fabric of Victorian society. But now you understand them differently. You no longer feel bound by them. You've found a way to move through the world without being defined by the performance. You've learned that there's room for authenticity, for spontaneity, for connection in a world that often feels so rigid. And in that realization, you find a quiet freedom, one that allows you to live fully in the present moment without the need to conform to a script. The city around you still hums with the rhythm of polite society, but you now see it with new eyes. It's a place full of rules and rituals, yes, but it's also a place where real moments of connection are possible if you know where to look. And as you walk through the streets, you realize that it's not the rules that matter most. It's the choice to live beyond them, to embrace the moments where you can truly be yourself, to connect with others in a way that feels real. You continue on your path, knowing that the journey is far from over. There are still many more performances to play, many more gestures to make, but now you know that they don't define you. You are free to choose your own way, to find your own path, and to create your own moments of connection, and that you realize is all you really need. The days grow colder, and the city takes on a different character in the fall. The streets are quieter now, with the evening air sharp and crisp. People seem to huddle together, more their movements a little quicker, as if the cold drives them forward. But the quiet that settles in London is different now. It's not just the shift of the seasons, but the shift within you. The performance of etiquette still plays out all around, the gestures and glances continuing in their well-practiced precision. But somehow the weight of the rules feels lighter, less all-consuming. The longer you live within the structure, the more you begin to see the gaps, the moments where the formality is dropped, where the masks slip, if only for a second. You move through the city with ease, your steps more confident now, less concerned with keeping up appearances. You've learned the art of the bow, the nod, the polite distance. But you've also learned when to step outside that world, to break free from the walls that etiquette can sometimes build. You find yourself noticing the small moments, genuine smiles between strangers, a brief touch of the arm in a crowded market, a shared laugh that carries across a busy street. These moments aren't bound by the rules. They're raw, human, and real. As you walk along a familiar street, you catch a glimpse of a woman standing near a shop window. She's watching something inside, but her gaze is soft, her posture relaxed. There's something different about the way she carries herself, something unburdened by the rigid structure that governs so many others. You pass her without speaking, but there's an unspoken understanding between you. Her presence, her ease, reminds you of the simplicity of genuine interaction, free from the constraints of formality. It's a small moment, but it stays with you, a reminder that connection doesn't have to be forced, doesn't have to be cloaked in politeness to be meaningful. You walk on the world continuing around you, people exchanging the usual pleasantries, moving in time with the unspoken rhythm of the city. But now the rhythm seems less like a performance and more like a backdrop. You move through it, part of the crowd, but not entirely defined by it. The walls that once felt so high, so impenetrable, seem to be receding, and you begin to understand the rules of politeness are necessary. Yes, but they are not everything. They are not what defines your connection with the world. You are more than your performance. The realization is quiet but profound. For so long, you've measured your interactions through the lens of social expectation. Every gesture, every word, every glance was framed by the unspoken rules. But now you see them for what they are, tools, not traps. They help guide you, yes, but they don't have to control you. You can choose when to follow them, when to step outside them, and most importantly, you can choose to seek moments of connection beyond the formalities. As you continue on your path, you come across a man selling flowers from a small stall. His voice is warm as he greets you, offering a handful of blooms for sale. You've walked by him many times before exchanging polite nods, perhaps a brief word. But today, something is different. You stop and actually look at the flowers, their beautiful bright petals of pink, yellow, and lavender vivid against the gray of the city. You smile at the man, and instead of simply nodding or offering a passing compliment, you ask about the flowers. "What kind are these?" you inquire, genuinely curious. The man beams, his face lighting up as he tells you about the different varieties. You listen, intrigued by the beauty of the moment, by the simplicity of the conversation. There's no need for formality here. There's no rigid dance of etiquette. It's just a person talking to another, sharing a brief, honest exchange. As you leave the stall, the flowers in hand, you feel lighter. The interaction wasn't bound by the usual constraints of politeness, it was human, natural, and real. You realize that the more you step outside the performance, the more you're able to connect with others on a deeper level. The rules, while still present, don't have to define every aspect of your life. The gestures of politeness can coexist with moments of authenticity. In fact, they can enhance each other. You continue on the flowers tucked into your bag, a small reminder of the connection you've made. It's not a grand gesture, not a world-changing moment, but it's enough. It's enough to remind you that even in a world built on formality, there's always room for something real. A smile, a conversation, a simple connection. These things don't require the weight of etiquette to be meaningful. You walk back toward home feeling the city around you, not as a performer on a stage, but as someone who is finally allowing themselves to step off the stage and into the world. The city, the people, the rules, they're all still there. But now they feel more like part of the landscape, part of the backdrop of your life. You no longer need to constantly adhere to them. You can choose when to engage with them, when to step outside them, and when to simply be. For the first time in a long while, you feel a quiet sense of peace settle over you. The performance has ended not in a dramatic finality, but in a soft, seamless transition. You can still play your part, but you don't have to live within it. There's space now for authenticity, for connection, and for you to be yourself without the burden of expectation. And so you walk on feeling lighter, feeling free. The rules will always be there, part of the fabric of the world you live in, but now you see that you have the choice to step beyond them whenever you wish. The journey continues, but now it feels more like your own. The city feels different now, not because the people have changed or the rules have shifted, but because your perspective has. You walk the streets with a new awareness, as though the world has opened up in ways it never did before. You've learned to navigate the rituals of Victorian politeness, the subtle gestures, the formalities that define every interaction, but now they don't define you. You see them as they are tools that help maintain harmony in society, but not the essence of what it means to be human. There's a space between the rules and your actions, and that space you've come to realize is where real connection can happen. You make your way through the familiar paths, but you no longer rush past people caught up in the performance. Now you notice them the way they move, the way their eyes flicker, with emotions they often hide behind formal smiles. There's a quiet understanding growing inside you. Everyone is performing whether they know it or not. And maybe, just maybe, the true beauty of these interactions lies in the spaces between the gestures where the masks slip, and you can glimpse a person's true self. As you walk, a familiar figure catches your eye. A woman you've seen a few times, always carrying herself with a sense of quiet dignity. She's at the street corner today, waiting for a carriage. The soft wind catching her skirt, causing it to ripple lightly. For a moment, she glances up, her eyes meeting yours. She gives you a small smile, and though it's brief, it feels real, unrestrained, without the burden of politeness that often makes such gestures feel empty. You stop for a moment, and in that pause you feel a shift, a silent connection that transcends the usual rules. Without thinking, you cross the street toward her. You don't know what drives you to approach her now. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's a desire to see if you can step outside the performance of greetings, to see if something real can emerge from a simple, unguarded exchange. As you approach, you speak first. The wind is quite sharp today, isn't it? You say the words casual, but free of the usual constraints. She looks at you for a moment, her expression not guarded, but open almost as though she's waiting for you to step outside the formalities too. "Yes," she replies with a soft laugh. I hadn't expected it to turn this cold so suddenly. The conversation flows easily now, no performance required. There's no careful nod, no forced smile. It's two people talking, and it feels genuine, real. You don't need to follow the ritual to connect. In this moment, you realize that politeness doesn't have to be a mask. It can be part of a deeper exchange if allowed to coexist with authenticity. As you chat for a few moments longer, you feel the barriers between you both fall away, replaced by something that feels entirely human, a simple exchange of words untainted by the pressure of societal expectations. She laughs at something you say, and you realize for the first time that in this moment neither of you are playing a part. You are simply present with each other. Eventually, the carriage arrives, and she steps forward, giving you one last smile. "It was lovely to meet you," she says, her voice warm. "Take care of yourself in this weather." You smile back, watching as she steps into the carriage. The moment lingers in the air for a while longer, the warmth of her smile, the simplicity of the exchange. And for the first time you understand. The performance, the formality, is not the enemy. It's the mask that hides the possibility of something deeper. But when you step outside it, when you allow yourself to simply be, you realize there is space for something more meaningful. You don't need to abandon the rules. You can learn to live with them, but also choose to let the mask slip when the moment calls for it. As you continue your walk, you feel a sense of quiet satisfaction. You have not only learned the rules, but you have also begun to understand where they can be bent, where they can coexist with authenticity. The city around you still hums with the rhythm of politeness, but you no longer feel like you are just performing. You've found a way to live within it while still being yourself. You've learned to see the spaces where genuine connection can happen, and more importantly, to step into them when they present themselves. The days continue, but they feel different now. You are no longer defined by the rigid constraints of etiquette, but you carry them with you, a tool to be used, not a cage to confine you. The world is still full of rules, still full of gestures and rituals, but now you see them for what they are, part of the larger landscape, but not the whole of it. You move through it all with the quiet understanding that the true value of an interaction lies not in the performance, but in the connection. And so, as you walk through the streets, the city around you feels lighter, freer. The performance continues, but you are no longer just an actor in it. You have learned to step outside the script when it feels right. And in doing so, you have found your own path, one where the rules and the moments of authenticity coexist, creating a life that feels more real. The days slip by, each one unfolding with a delicate rhythm. Yet there's a difference now. The weight of the performance, the rules that once dictated every interaction, no longer feel like a burden. You move through the world with a new sense of freedom, aware of the structure around you, but no longer confined by it. You've come to understand that the etiquette of Victorian society isn't inherently oppressive. It serves its purpose, maintaining order, allowing people to coexist with a sense of predictability. But you've also learned that you don't have to be ruled by it. There's a space in between the rituals and the rawness of human connection, a space you've learned to occupy. Today, you wander through the market. The familiar hustle of vendors calling out their wares, the chatter of buyers haggling for prices. The scent of fresh bread and ripe fruit fills the air. But today, you're not just a passive observer. You walk with purpose, engaging with the world around you, not just as someone who follows the rules, but as someone who can choose how to move within them. You smile at the fruit vendor, a gesture that feels genuine, not forced by obligation. He offers you a brief nod in return, and for a moment the world feels lighter. There's no performance in the exchange, just a simple recognition of one another. The next vendor you pass catches your eye. It's a woman selling flowers, her stall bursting with color. You've passed her countless times before, always exchanging polite smiles, never going beyond the surface. Today, something shifts. You stop, and without thinking about the formality of the greeting, you ask her, "What's your favorite flower?" She looks up, her eyes lighting up at the unexpected question. "Oh, that would be the lilacs," she replies with a soft laugh. "They remind me of spring, of new beginnings." You smile, intrigued by her response. "They're beautiful," you say, and for a moment the world around you seems to disappear. It's not a transaction. It's not an exchange of pleasantries to move the interaction along. It's a real moment, a brief, authentic connection. You thank her for the flowers, and as you move on, you feel the satisfaction of the moment lingering. This, you realize, is what you've been searching for. You've learned the rules of politeness, and you've learned how to navigate them with grace. But now you understand that the true beauty of human connection doesn't lie in the rituals or the distance they create. It lies in the small, unexpected moments like asking someone about their favorite flower, or smiling at a stranger without the expectation of anything in return. As you walk through the market, you see it everywhere. The gestures that were once so mechanical now feel alive. The couple walking hand in hand, the old man laughing with the children, the vendor sharing a story with a passerby. There is still politeness, still the familiar rhythm of Victorian etiquette, but it's softer now. People don't seem as constrained by it, as though they've learned to move within the rules while still allowing space for real connection. You stop in front of a small cafe, the warm light spilling out into the cold street, and for the first time you don't feel the need to rush past. The door is open, and as you step inside, you're greeted not by a strict formality, but by the hum of quiet conversations, the clink of cups and saucers, the rustle of newspaper pages being turned. You take a seat at a small table by the window, the glow of the street lamp casting a soft light across the room. The waiter approaches, and as you look up, you offer him a smile, not the polite smile you've worn 1,000 times, but a real one. You don't know why it feels different today, but it does. The smile feels free, unburdened by the usual constraints. The waiter returns it a brief but sincere acknowledgement of your presence. As you sit there sipping your tea, you realize that the performance isn't gone. It doesn't need to be. But now you've found a way to live with it, to allow yourself to be part of it, while still carving out space for something deeper, something more real. The rules are there, yes, but they no longer control you. You've learned to step outside of them when it's right to break free from the mask and embrace authenticity when the moment calls for it. The city hums outside its rhythm, still structured, still governed by the unspoken rules that have shaped it for generations. But you no longer see it as a stage to perform upon. You see it as a living, breathing entity, full of people, each one playing their part, yes, but each one also capable of breaking free, of embracing something more. The trick, you realize, is in choosing those moments, choosing when to engage with the performance and when to step outside of it to embrace the raw, unguarded connections that make life feel real. You finish your tea, paying for it with a smile that feels like a bridge a silent acknowledgement that you are present, that you are here in this moment. As you leave the cafe, the world outside doesn't feel so daunting anymore. You've learned that the performance of politeness is only a part of the picture. The rest, authenticity, connection, vulnerability, is yours to create. And in that realization, you find a quiet sense of peace. The journey continues, but now it feels like your own. The seasons continue to shift, the winds of change whispering through the streets of London as the year edges toward its close. The crispness of the air carries with it the feeling of something new, a sense of possibility, of moving forward. You've walked these streets countless times, yet each step now feels different. The city remains the same with its bustling crowds, its quiet alleys, and the familiar hum of life, but your presence within it has changed. You no longer feel confined by the rules that once dictated your every move. You've learned to live within them, to navigate them with grace, but you've also found the courage to step outside them when the moment feels right. The balance you've struck feels peaceful, like a delicate harmony between the old and the new. The rituals of Victorian society, those quiet, intricate gestures of politeness, are still there, part of the landscape, but they no longer hold the same power over you. They're no longer a burden. Instead, they're a part of the rhythm of the city, a background hum that you can choose to follow or not depending on the moment. You walk through a familiar park. The trees now bare of their leaves, the ground covered in a carpet of gold and brown. The air is sharp, the scent of autumn still lingering. As you pass by, you notice the couple from earlier in the week still together, their movements easy, comfortable. Their conversation flows not bound by formality, but relaxed as though they've found something genuine within the framework of politeness. You smile to yourself, a quiet recognition of the small moments where people can step outside the performance and connect without the weight of expectation. The more you see this, the more you understand. It's not the rules that are the problem. It's the rigidity, the refusal to step outside of them that creates the distance. You've seen it in yourself in the moments where you chose the polite smile over the real one, the measured nod over a spontaneous conversation. But now you know how to find the balance, how to allow both to coexist. The rules of politeness can be a guide, a way to move through the world with respect for others, but they don't have to be a cage. The sound of laughter pulls you from your thoughts. Ahead, a group of children is playing in the park, their voices filled with the carefree joy that only youth can bring. You stop for a moment watching them as they run, their laughter unrestrained, their movements wild and free. There's no performance here, no carefully curated gestures. Just children lost in the moment, living fully without the weight of social expectations. You can't help but feel a small pang of longing. To be that free, to be that unburdened by the world's gaze, it's a freedom that seems so simple, yet so elusive. As you stand there, you realize that the gift of childhood, the gift of spontaneity, of living without fear of judgment, is something we all carry inside us. Somewhere along the way, the rules of society, the need for politeness replace that freedom, shaping our interactions and behaviors. But it doesn't have to be that way. You've learned that the art of politeness isn't about suppressing yourself, but about choosing when to engage with the performance and when to simply be. You smile again, a real smile this time, and continue on your walk. The park, the laughter, the children, all of it feels like a reminder that life at its core is simple. It's not about the performance. It's about the connection, the shared moments that happen when you let go of the rules, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable. You pass through the park, your steps more assured now, and find your way to a cafe at the edge of the square. The warm glow of the lights spills out onto the street, inviting you in. As you enter, you're greeted by the familiar hum of conversation, the clink of cups, the soft rustle of newspaper pages. The waiter offers a polite nod, and you return the gesture. But as you settle into your seat, something inside you shifts. You don't feel the need to perform to adhere to the usual social conventions. You don't feel the need to measure every word or gesture. You're here in this moment with nothing to prove. The cafe is quiet. The world outside hushed by the falling night, and for the first time you feel completely at peace. The rules are still there, but they no longer govern you. They're a part of the world, not the definition of it. You're free to engage with them when it feels right, but you're also free to step outside them, to find your own path, your own moments of connection, and as you sit there sipping your tea, watching the world move outside the window, you realize that the journey isn't about rejecting the rules or the structure that society has built. It's about finding your own space within them, allowing yourself the freedom to move, to choose, and to connect. The performance will always be there, but so will the moments of authenticity, of real connection, if you choose to embrace them. The journey is far from over, but for the first time you feel like you're walking it on your own terms, moving through the world, not as a performer, but as someone fully alive, fully present, and fully free. The year continues its quiet march toward winter, the city around you adjusting to the slower rhythm of the colder months. The streets, once lively with the bustle of the marketplace, are now quieter, more reflective, as if the world is pausing to breathe before the new year begins. The chill in the air seems to deepen the silence, making the distant sounds of the city even more pronounced. There's a stillness in London now that invites reflection, a rare opportunity to consider where you've been and where you're headed. You step outside into the crisp air, the familiar weight of Victorian society's rules still present, but no longer as heavy as they once were. The streets are lined with frost, the delicate outlines of flowers and trees dusted with snow. The landscape is quieter now, more introspective, and for the first time in a long while you find yourself at peace. You no longer feel the need to follow every social expectation or perform every gesture of politeness. You've learned how to navigate the world of etiquette, but now you see it for what it is, just a part of the world you inhabit, not something that defines you. As you walk through the streets, you notice the small moments that make life rich, the smile of a child as they play in the snow, the quiet exchange of a look between two strangers that speaks volumes without a word being said. These moments, you realize, are where the real connections happen. They don't need to be bound by rules or formalities. They're raw, honest, and human. And for the first time you understand that it's in these moments that life truly happens. You pass a familiar street corner, the one where you met the woman selling flowers a few weeks ago. Today, there's no one at the stall, the flowers gone, the space empty. But the memory of the conversation lingers. You stop for a moment, thinking about how easily it could have been another polite transactional exchange, something that followed the prescribed rules of interaction. But instead, you had stepped outside the performance and it had changed everything. It had made the moment real. It had made it meaningful. You continue walking, and as you make your way through the streets, you begin to realize that the rules of Victorian etiquette, for all their structure and order, have their place. But they no longer rule you. You can engage with them, but you can also step beyond them when the moment calls for it. You've learned how to be present in the moment, to let the world around you unfold without feeling the weight of expectation. The connection you've sought, The authenticity you've yearned for is not something to be found by rejecting the rules entirely. It's found in the moments when you can choose to embrace the world as it is, when you can be present with others without the need to perform. You reach the cafe you've come to love, the one where you've spent many quiet afternoons watching the world go by. As you enter, the familiar warmth greets you, and the subtle clink of cups and hushed conversations wraps around you like a soft blanket. You take your usual seat by the window, looking out at the street as the evening draws in. The city is still almost suspended in time. The flicker of the streetlights outside casts soft shadows across the floor, and for a moment you feel like you're on the edge of something. Something not defined by the rituals, but something deeper. A connection that goes beyond politeness, beyond the performance. The waiter approaches, and this time, when he greets you, there's no need for the usual formalities. You smile at him, a real smile, and as you do, something shifts. It's not a transaction, not a performance, it's simply an acknowledgement, a moment shared. He nods in return, and for a brief moment there's no distance between you. It's a small thing, but it feels significant. You're no longer bound by the rituals of politeness, but you've found a way to engage with them while still maintaining your authenticity. As you sit there, sipping your tea and watching the world outside, you reflect on how far you've come. You've learned to navigate the rules of etiquette, the subtle codes of behavior that govern Victorian society, but you've also learned to live beyond them. You've found that there's a balance to be struck, one where the formalities of politeness coexist with the rawness of genuine connection. And in that balance you've discovered a quiet freedom, a freedom that comes from choosing how to engage with the world around you. The journey you've been on has been a long one, full of questions, doubts, and moments of revelation. But now, as the year comes to an end, you feel a sense of clarity, of peace. You no longer feel the need to be confined by the performance of politeness. You've learned to live within the rules, but you've also learned when to step outside them. And in doing so, you've discovered something truly valuable, the ability to be yourself in a world that often feels dictated by expectations. You've found a way to live authentically, to connect with others without the weight of performance. And in that, you've found a quiet peace. The city continues to hum around you, the rhythm of life ever present, but you no longer feel lost within it. You've learned to move with it, to engage with it on your own terms. And as you finish your tea and step back into the cool evening air, you realize that the journey is far from over. The world is still full of rules, of rituals, of gestures, but now you know that it's your choice how you engage with them. You've found your way, and with it, a new understanding of the world around you. And for the first time, you feel truly free. The soft hum of winter has settled in as the city edges into its final days of the year. The streets, once filled with the noise of crowds, are now quieter, more subdued, the air crisp with the first signs of true cold. The city has transformed, becoming a place of calm, almost like a pause before the coming rush of the new year. People move more deliberately now, huddled against the chill, their steps purposeful, but slower, as if the weight of the year is pressing down on them too. It's a time for reflection, a time to look back at what's been, and perhaps to consider what's next. You walk through the quiet streets with a different sense of ease. The rigidness of the past no longer governs your steps. You've learned to navigate the rules, but you've also learned how to step outside them when it feels right. You've found balance between the formality of politeness and the authenticity of being yourself. It's no longer a struggle. It feels natural, almost effortless. The weight of the performance is gone, replaced by the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that you can move through the world with ease, without constantly worrying about what's expected of you. Today, the streets are lined with holiday decorations. The lights shimmer against the gray sky, casting a warm glow on the sidewalks. People pass by wrapped in scarves and coats, carrying packages or walking with loved ones. There's a festive air to it all, but it's not the loud, boisterous kind of celebration. It's quieter, more reserved, much like the city itself. A celebration without the pressure to perform a moment where people come together simply to be not because they have to, but because they want to. As you walk, you notice the small moments of connection. The couple walking hand in hand, their heads close together, speaking softly. The group of children laughing as they play in the snow. These moments, unspoken and raw, remind you that there's something more to life than following the rules, more than adhering to the etiquette that has governed your interactions for so long. They're moments of true connection, moments where people let their guards down and simply exist with one another. You stop for a moment, taking in the scene before you. The world is still, the streets quiet. The only sounds, the soft crunch of footsteps in the snow, and the occasional murmur of voices. There's a peacefulness in it, a stillness that feels almost sacred. For a moment, you close your eyes and take a deep breath, allowing yourself to be fully present in the moment. The weight of the year of the performance of the politeness, all of it falls away. In this quiet, you are simply here. You turn a corner and come across a familiar cafe. You have spent many afternoons here, watching the world go by, sipping tea, lost in your thoughts. Today, it feels different. There's a warmth in the air, a welcoming feeling that beckons you inside. You push open the door, the soft chime of the bell overhead signaling your arrival. The cafe is cozy, the soft light of the candles flickering on the tables, the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. The waiter greets you with a smile, and you return it, your greeting effortless, genuine. The formality of it all seems to melt away in this space, and for the first time you feel fully at home in the world. There's no need for the mask of politeness here. There's no performance, no distance. Just two people sharing a moment, a space, a simple interaction. It's enough. You sit at your usual table by the window, watching the people outside as they move through the city. The world continues on, full of the rules and rituals that govern it. But now you see it differently. The world is no longer a stage for you to perform on. It's a place to live, to connect, to exist authentically. The weight of the performance is gone, and in its place is something more genuine, more human. You've learned to move through the world with grace, but you've also learned to embrace the spaces where you can let go of the rules and simply be. As you sit there sipping your tea, the quiet of the cafe wrapping around you like a warm embrace, you realize that this is what you've been searching for all along. It's not the perfection of the performance, but the real moments of connection, the times when you let go of the need to conform and allow yourself to be present with others. It's the simplicity of a smile, the warmth of a genuine conversation, the quiet recognition that at the end of the day we are all just people doing our best to navigate this complex world. The world is still full of rules, full of rituals, full of performances. But now you understand that they don't define you. You can choose when to follow them, when to step outside them, when to simply be. And in that choice you find a quiet peace, a sense of belonging not to the rules, but to the moments that matter. The ones where connection is real, where the performance fades, and where you can simply exist. As you finish your tea and prepare to leave, you step out into the cold night air, feeling the weight of the world lighten. You've found your place in the world, and you know that the journey isn't over. But for the first time, you're not rushing to find the answers. You're simply living, letting the world unfold around you, knowing that whatever comes next, you are ready to face it with authenticity, grace, and a quiet understanding that you are enough just as you are. The year turns to a close, the city cloaked in a blanket of snow. The world outside is hushed, the sharp lines of buildings softened by the quiet stillness of the season. London, ever bustling and alive, feels almost peaceful in this moment. The hurried pace of the city has slowed, replaced by a quieter, reflective rhythm. People move through the streets at a more deliberate pace, and the sounds of their steps crunching on the snow seem to reverberate in the cold air. For the first time, you allow yourself to truly absorb the calm. The layers of expectation that once weighed on you have been shed piece by piece over the course of the year. You walk through the streets with a sense of ease, not bound by the need to conform to every rule or follow every expected gesture. The world still hums with the familiar etiquette of Victorian life, but now it feels more like a background to the experiences you create rather than a script you must follow. You stop in front of a small bookstore, its windows fogged slightly from the warmth inside. The faint glow of light spills out onto the sidewalk, and the smell of ink and paper drifts to you as you push the door open. The chime of the bell overhead is a soft reminder that you've arrived in a space that feels warm, safe, and full of possibility. This is a place where formality and politeness can slip away, where you can simply be. You find yourself wandering between the shelves, your fingers brushing over the spines of books, each one holding a world of its own. The air is quiet, the soft rustling of pages the only sound in the room. There's no pressure to perform, no need to measure your words or actions. You are free to explore, to get lost in the moment and the stories that surround you. It's a rare kind of freedom, the freedom to be curious without fear of judgment, to follow your own path, without the constraints of social expectations. As you wander, you come across a small section of poetry. You pull a book from the shelf, flipping through the pages, and a few lines catch your eye. They speak to you, to the journey you've been on, to the quiet moments of realization that have marked your path. You read them slowly, savoring each word, each phrase, letting the words wash over you. You've learned so much this year about the world around you, about the people you encounter, and about yourself. The poetry feels like a reflection of your own journey, a quiet affirmation of the path you've chosen. You leave the bookstore with a new book in hand, its pages full of possibilities. The snow is still falling lightly, and you feel a gentle peace settle in your chest. There's no need to rush, no need to prove anything. The world is there, unfolding around you, and you've found your place within it. The rules of politeness, the formalities of the past will always be part of this world, but they no longer dictate your actions. You can choose when to follow them, when to step outside them, and when to simply be. As you walk home, the world around you feels different. You've learned to navigate the delicate dance of etiquette, but you've also learned when to let go, when to connect with others on a deeper level. The journey hasn't been about rejecting the rules, but about understanding that there is more to life than just playing the part. It's about finding moments of connection, real and raw, without the need for masks or performances. The new year is just around the corner, and with it comes the promise of more experiences, more opportunities to continue the journey. But for now, in this quiet moment, you feel a sense of contentment. You've learned the rules, you've played the part, but you've also found your own path. And in that path, you've discovered something even more valuable than the perfect bow, or the perfectly timed nod, the freedom to be yourself. You return home, the quiet peace of the evening, wrapping around you like a warm blanket. The journey is far from over, but for the first time you feel fully present in the moment. You are here in this world, and you are enough just as you are. The rules, the performance, they no longer hold the same power over you. You are free to engage with them when necessary, to step outside of them when the moment calls for it, and to live authentically on your own terms. As you settle into the quiet of your home, you know that the path you've been walking has been one of discovery. Not just about the world around you, but about who you are and what it means to connect with others in a meaningful way. You've learned that true connection doesn't come from following the rules perfectly, but from allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to embrace the small, simple moments of life that make it all worthwhile. The journey continues, and you walk it with open eyes, open heart, and a deep sense of peace.